You wake up every morning with the same gnawing feeling in your chest. You scroll through social media, watching others celebrate their wins, their businesses, their freedom, while you sit there wondering when it will be your turn. You tell yourself you're grateful for what you have, but deep down, you're tired of settling. Tired of watching opportunities slip by because you don't know where to start, or because you're afraid of making the wrong move. I am Solomon, and I was once offered anything I could desire. Gold, power, a long life, the destruction of my enemies. But I chose wisdom, and that single choice transformed me from a young, uncertain king into the wealthiest man who ever lived. Not because I chased money, but because I understood something most people never learn. You see, you've been approaching prosperity backwards. You've been trying to build wealth without the foundation, trying to harvest before you've planted, trying to lead before you've learned to follow. And that's why you're stuck in the same cycle, year after year, dreaming of breakthrough but living in breakdown. Today, I'm going to show you the exact blueprint I used to build an empire that lasted generations. This isn't about positive thinking or manifestation. This is about the practical wisdom that turns ordinary people into extraordinary leaders. The same principles that built the temple, that created trade routes spanning continents, that transformed Israel into the economic powerhouse of the ancient world. But here's what I need you to understand. This isn't just about making more money. This is about becoming the person who naturally attracts prosperity. This is about shifting from someone who hopes for success to someone who commands it. From someone who reacts to circumstances to someone who creates them. The person you are right now got you to where you are right now. If you want different results, you need to become a different person. And I'm going to show you exactly how to make that transformation, using the same wisdom that made me richer than any man before or since. If you're ready to stop playing small, if you're ready to stop making excuses, and if you're ready to finally step into the prosperity that's been waiting for you, then subscribe right now. Because what I'm about to share with you will either change your life forever, or you'll ignore it and wonder years from now what could have been. Number 1, foundations of prosperity according to the Bible. You've been praying for financial breakthrough for months, maybe years. You've tithed faithfully, you've declared prosperity scriptures, you've even fasted for abundance. Yet you wake up every morning to the same bank balance, the same bills, the same limitations. Deep in your heart, there's a whisper you don't want to acknowledge. What if the problem isn't God's unwillingness to bless you? What if the problem is that you're trying to build a palace on quicksand? When I was a young king, barely out of my 20s, God appeared to me in a dream at Gibon. He offered me anything I desired. Anything. Long life, riches beyond measure, the death of my enemies, military victories that would make me legendary. But I had watched my father David struggle with wealth that came without wisdom. I had seen men destroyed by gold they couldn't manage and power they couldn't handle. So I asked for wisdom, not because I was particularly noble, but because I was terrified of becoming another cautionary tale. Think of wisdom as the foundation of a skyscraper. You can't see it once the building is complete, but everything depends on it. Without that foundation, the higher you build, the more catastrophic your fall becomes. Wisdom is the bedrock that determines whether your prosperity will be a blessing or a curse, whether your wealth will serve you or enslave you. Most people approach prosperity like a gambler approaches a casino. They want the jackpot without understanding the game. They launch businesses without learning the fundamentals, take on debt without comprehending the burden, make financial decisions based on emotions rather than understanding. This is not faith. This is foolishness dressed up in spiritual language. I remember visiting the construction sites of my kingdom in those early years. I would see workers trying to build walls before laying foundations, eager to show progress, impatient with the slow, invisible work below ground. Those walls always cracked. Those buildings always failed. The workers who took time to dig deep, to lay proper foundations, their structures lasted centuries. Here's the shift that changes everything. Prosperity is not a destination you arrive at. It's a way of thinking you develop. It's not about having enough money to stop worrying. It's about developing enough wisdom to make money work for you instead of against you. When you seek wisdom first, wealth becomes a natural byproduct, not a desperate pursuit. Before you start another business, before you take on more debt, before you make another financial decision based on hope rather than understanding, stop. Invest in your mind before you invest your money. Study how money actually works. Learn the principles that govern wealth creation. Understand the difference between assets and liabilities, between investing and speculating, between building wealth and chasing income. The foundation of biblical prosperity is not positive thinking or faith declarations. It's wisdom applied to the practical realities of how God designed the world to work. Money flows according to principles as reliable as gravity. When you align with these principles, prosperity becomes inevitable. When you ignore them, failure becomes guaranteed, no matter how much you pray or how hard you work. Your financial breakthrough is not waiting for God to change His mind about blessing you. It's waiting for you to develop the wisdom to handle what He's already prepared to give you. Number 2, mindset is fertile ground for prosperity. You carry invisible chains that are heavier than any physical bondage. These chains were forged by every person who told you that wanting money makes you worldly, that prosperity is somehow unspiritual, that good Christians should be content with just enough. You've internalized these lies so deeply that even when you pray for increase, part of you feels guilty for asking. The battleground of prosperity is not in the marketplace. It's between your ears. Your external world is nothing more than a reflection of your internal landscape. If your mind is filled with scarcity thinking, limitation beliefs, and poverty consciousness, no amount of hard work or prayer will create lasting abundance. You'll sabotage every opportunity, reject every blessing, and remain trapped in cycles of financial mediocrity. Your mind is like soil. You can plant the best seeds in the world, but if the soil is contaminated with toxins, those seeds will never flourish. Most people have soil contaminated with generational poverty thinking, religious guilt about money, and deep-seated beliefs that they don't deserve prosperity. They wonder why their dreams never take root, why their efforts never bear fruit, why they always seem to take one step forward and 2 steps back. When I became king, I inherited more than a throne. I inherited the mindset of a shepherd boy who became wealthy beyond imagination. David, my father, had to learn to think like a king while sitting in caves, hiding from Saul. He developed royal thinking in peasant circumstances. This is the internal transformation that must happen before external prosperity can manifest. I spent years studying the mindset of successful kings, observing how they thought differently from their subjects. Kings think in terms of kingdoms, not personal comfort. They think in generations, not just seasons. They see problems as opportunities for solutions that create value for others. They understand that wealth is not something you get, it's something you become. The shift happens when you stop asking God to change your circumstances and start asking Him to change your mind. When you stop seeing money as evil and start seeing it as a tool for kingdom purposes. When you stop thinking like someone who needs a job and start thinking like someone who creates jobs. When you stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like a producer. This transformation requires brutal honesty about the lies you've believed. Every time you catch yourself thinking, "I can't afford it," replace it with, "How can I create the value necessary to afford it?" Every time you think, "Rich people are greedy," remember that broke people can't feed the hungry, house the homeless, or fund the gospel. Every time you feel guilty for wanting more, remember that God gave Adam dominion over everything in the garden, not just enough to survive. Start each day by declaring your identity as a steward of God's resources, not a victim of economic circumstances. See yourself as someone whose financial increase blesses others, not someone whose gain comes at others' expense. Think like someone whose prosperity is inevitable, not someone whose breakthrough is unlikely. Your mindset determines your altitude. Change your thinking, and you change your trajectory. The same God who trusted me with the wealth of nations is waiting to trust you with resources that match your renewed mind. Number 3, leadership mindset and prosperous mindset. You've been thinking like an employee your entire life, even when you became an entrepreneur. You wait for permission instead of taking initiative. You think about what you can get instead of what you can give. You react to circumstances instead of creating them. You follow trends instead of setting them. Deep down, you're still waiting for someone else to rescue you from your financial limitations. The difference between those who prosper and those who merely survive is not talent, education, or even opportunity. It's mindset. More specifically, it's the difference between a servant mindset and a royal mindset. Servants think small, ask for little, and accept limitations as permanent. Kings think big, demand excellence, and see obstacles as temporary inconveniences on the path to inevitable victory. When I became king at such a young age, I was surrounded by advisors who had servant mindsets. They would present me with problems and wait for me to solve them. They would identify limitations and accept them as unchangeable. They would see competitors as threats rather than opportunities to sharpen our own excellence. I had to learn to think differently, not just for my own success, but for the prosperity of everyone under my authority. Leadership thinking means you see solutions where others see problems. When there was no temple for God in Jerusalem, others saw the impossibility of such a massive undertaking. I saw the opportunity to create something magnificent that would honor God and establish Israel as a center of wisdom and worship for all nations. The difference was not in our circumstances, but in how we interpreted those circumstances. Think of leadership mindset like the operating system of a computer. You can install all the right programs, have all the right hardware, but if your operating system is outdated and corrupted, nothing works properly. Your leadership mindset is the operating system through which you process every opportunity, every challenge, every decision. If it's programmed with limitation thinking, everything you do will produce limited results. Most people approach business with employee thinking. They want guaranteed outcomes with minimal risk. They want someone else to provide the vision, the resources, and the strategy. They want to trade time for money and go home at 5 o'clock. There's nothing wrong with this, but it will never create significant wealth. Wealth is created by those who think like owners, who accept full responsibility for results, who stay up late solving problems that no one else will tackle. The transformation begins when you stop seeing yourself as someone who works for money and start seeing yourself as someone money works for. When you stop thinking about what the market owes you and start thinking about what value you can create for the market. When you stop avoiding risk and start managing it strategically. When you stop thinking about what you don't have and start leveraging what you do have. I built my prosperity step by step, stone upon stone, relationship upon relationship, wisdom upon wisdom. I didn't seek overnight success or instant gratification. I understood that anything built quickly usually crumbles quickly. I planned for decades, not quarters. I made decisions that would benefit my great-grandchildren, not just my immediate comfort. Leadership mindset means you play the long game while others are obsessed with quick wins. You build systems while others chase sales. You develop people while others exploit them. You create value while others extract it. You think like a king, and eventually the kingdom reflects your thinking. Stop asking permission to prosper. Start taking responsibility for your own financial destiny. The crown of prosperity belongs to those who think like they already deserve to wear it. Number 4, foundations of sustainable growth. You're addicted to the illusion of progress. You mistake motion for movement, activity for achievement, busyness for business. You expand before you organize, scale before you stabilize, promote before you perfect. You want to look successful more than you want to be successful, and this obsession with appearances is sabotaging your actual growth. True prosperity is built like a tree, not like a firework. Trees grow slowly, develop deep root systems, and become stronger with each season. Fireworks explode spectacularly, impress everyone watching, and then disappear completely, leaving nothing but smoke and memory. Most people build firework businesses because they're impatient with tree growth. When I inherited the kingdom from David, I could have immediately launched military campaigns to expand our territory. I could have built monuments to myself or thrown lavish parties to impress other kingdoms. Instead, I spent years organizing what we already had. I established proper systems for justice, commerce, administration, and worship. I developed the infrastructure that would support expansion rather than collapse under its weight. I studied kingdoms that had risen and fallen before my time. The pattern was always the same. Kings who expanded without organizing created empires that crumbled within a generation. Kings who organized before they expanded created dynasties that lasted centuries. The choice was clear: build fast and fall fast, or build slowly and last forever. Think of sustainable growth like building a cathedral. The foundation takes years and no one sees it. The framework takes more years and looks unimpressive to casual observers. But once that invisible infrastructure is complete, the visible beauty can be added quickly, and it will stand for centuries. Most entrepreneurs want to start with the beautiful parts because that's what gets attention. But beauty without structure is just decoration waiting to collapse. The marketplace rewards substance, not flash. Here's what sustainable growth actually looks like. You perfect your systems before you scale them. You develop your people before you promote them. You master your current market before you expand into new ones. You build reserves before you take risks. You create processes that work without you before you add complexity that requires you. I see entrepreneurs trying to manage 50 opportunities poorly instead of managing 5 opportunities excellently. They have grand visions but no execution systems. They can paint beautiful pictures of where they're going, but they have no roadmap for how to get there. They're so focused on the destination that they ignore the vehicle that's supposed to take them there. The shift happens when you fall in love with excellence instead of expansion, with depth instead of width, with quality instead of quantity. When you understand that the right foundation can support unlimited growth, but the wrong foundation will collapse under any significant weight. When you realize that what you build in secret determines what you can sustain in public. Stop trying to impress people with how fast you're moving. Start impressing God with how solid you're building. The applause of the crowd fades, but the approval of the Almighty echoes through generations. Number 5, discipline and consistent habits. You have all the motivation in the world on Sunday night. You create elaborate plans, set ambitious goals, make passionate commitments to change your financial life forever. By Wednesday, you're making excuses. By Friday, you're back to your old patterns. By Sunday, you're wondering why nothing ever changes. The problem isn't your passion, it's your process. Talent will get you noticed, but discipline will make you wealthy. I've seen brilliant people die broke and average people build empires. The difference was never intelligence or opportunity. It was the willingness to do what successful people do, day after day, even when they didn't feel like it, especially when they didn't feel like it. Most people treat discipline like a sprint when it's actually a marathon. They go all out for a few days or weeks, exhaust themselves with unsustainable effort, then quit when the initial excitement fades. They mistake intensity for consistency, burning bright for burning long. But wealth is built by those who burn steady, not those who burn hot. I learned this principle from the ant, a creature I wrote about extensively in my Proverbs. The ant doesn't wait for motivation. It doesn't need a coach to push it forward or a deadline to create urgency. It simply does what ants do, consistently, systematically, regardless of weather or mood or external circumstances. It prepares in summer for the challenges of winter, not because it feels inspired, but because it understands consequences. Think of discipline as compound interest for your character. Every day you do what you're supposed to do, even when you don't want to, you make a deposit into an account that will pay dividends for decades. Every day you skip, make excuses, or choose comfort over commitment, you make a withdrawal from your future prosperity. Most people are overdrawn in their discipline account and wonder why their financial account reflects that deficit. The wealthy wake up at the same time every day, not because they have to, but because they choose to. They read for 30 minutes, exercise regularly, review their goals weekly, and track their progress daily. These aren't extraordinary actions. They're ordinary actions done extraordinarily consistently. The magic is not in the doing. The magic is in the repeating. I built my wealth through daily habits that seemed insignificant at the time, but proved invaluable over years. Every morning, I spent time seeking God's wisdom for the decisions ahead. Every evening, I reviewed the day's choices and learned from both successes and failures. Every week, I evaluated my progress toward long-term goals. Every month, I adjusted strategies based on results. These habits created the framework within which inspiration could become implementation. Here's the transformation that changes everything. Stop depending on motivation and start building systems. Motivation gets you started, but systems keep you going. Create daily routines that move you toward prosperity, whether you feel inspired or not. Make deposits into your financial future as automatically as you pay your bills. Treat personal development as seriously as you treat personal hygiene. The difference between dreamers and achievers is not the size of their dreams. It's the consistency of their actions. Dreams without discipline are just fantasies. Discipline without dreams is just drudgery. But dreams plus discipline equals destiny. And destiny is built one disciplined day at a time. Stop waiting for the perfect moment to start building wealth. Start building the perfect habits that create wealth. The person you become through daily discipline will naturally attract the prosperity that matches your character. Number 6, strategic connections and collective prosperity. You've been trying to build an empire with your bare hands while surrounded by people with tools, resources, and expertise you desperately need. Your pride whispers that asking for help is weakness, that true success must be achieved alone, that dependence on others diminishes your accomplishments. Meanwhile, you struggle with problems that others have already solved, reinvent wheels that have been rolling smoothly for decades, and limit your potential to what you can achieve in isolation. No one prospers in a vacuum. Even I, with all the wisdom God granted me, could not have built the temple alone. The vision was mine, the blessing was God's, but the execution required the expertise, resources, and collaboration of others. King Hiram of Tyre provided the cedar wood and skilled craftsmen. My own people contributed the labor and materials. Together, we created something magnificent that none of us could have achieved independently. Think of strategic relationships like rivers feeding into a mighty waterway. A single stream, no matter how pure or swift, has limited power. But when streams converge, they create rivers. When rivers converge, they create forces that can carve canyons, move mountains, and reshape landscapes. Your individual talents are important, but your strategic connections determine whether those talents create a puddle or an ocean. Most people network like they're collecting business cards at a conference. They meet people, exchange contact information, add connections on social media, and then wonder why nothing meaningful develops. They treat relationships like transactions, looking for immediate returns rather than investing in long-term value. They focus on what they can get rather than what they can give. I approached alliances differently. Before I sought King Hiram's help with the temple, I studied what he needed, what challenges his kingdom faced, what value I could provide in exchange for his expertise. I didn't approach him as a beggar seeking charity, but as a king offering mutually beneficial partnership. The temple project succeeded because both kingdoms prospered through our collaboration. The wealthiest people in any industry have one thing in common. They're surrounded by other successful people who amplify their capabilities, expand their reach, and accelerate their progress. They understand that isolation leads to limitation, while collaboration leads to multiplication. They know that the right introduction can be worth more than years of hard work, that the right partnership can accomplish more than decades of solo effort. Here's the mindset shift that changes everything. Stop seeing other successful people as competition and start seeing them as potential collaboration partners. Stop hoarding opportunities and start sharing them, knowing that generosity creates reciprocity. Stop trying to be the smartest person in every room and start seeking rooms where you're the least experienced, because that's where the greatest learning happens. But choose your connections wisely. Not every relationship is strategic, and not every strategic relationship is healthy. Align yourself with people who share your values, match your integrity, and exceed your ambitions. Avoid those who drain your energy, limit your thinking, or compromise your character. One toxic relationship can contaminate years of careful progress. Build relationships before you need them. Help others succeed before you ask for help. Add value consistently, not just when you want something in return. Remember names, celebrate others' victories, and offer support during their challenges. True wealth is built on a foundation of authentic relationships, not manipulative networking. Your network determines your net worth, but more importantly, your character determines your network. Be the kind of person that successful people want to collaborate with, and collaboration opportunities will find you. Number 7, discernment in relationships and financial effects. You're bleeding money through relationships you should have ended years ago. Business partners who drain more than they contribute. Employees who create more problems than they solve. Advisors whose counsel consistently leads you away from prosperity. Friends whose financial irresponsibility influences your own decision-making. You know these relationships are toxic, but you're too loyal, too hopeful, or too afraid to make the necessary changes. Every relationship in your life is either adding value or extracting it, building your wealth or diminishing it, moving you toward prosperity or pulling you toward poverty. There is no neutral ground in relationships when it comes to money. Every person you allow significant influence in your life will either elevate your financial thinking or contaminate it with their own limitations and fears. I learned this lesson through painful experience. In my later years, I allowed relationships into my inner circle that led me away from the wisdom that had made me wealthy. Foreign wives brought foreign gods and foreign thinking about money, power, and purpose. Advisors who flattered my ego rather than challenged my decisions. Associates who were more interested in what they could gain from my wealth than what they could contribute to my kingdom. Think of your inner circle like the board of directors for your financial future. Every voice you regularly listen to is casting a vote about what's possible for your prosperity. If your board is filled with people who think small, avoid risk, and settle for mediocrity, their collective influence will keep you trapped in their limited thinking. But if your board consists of people who think big, embrace calculated risks, and refuse to settle, their influence will expand your financial possibilities. The most expensive words in the English language are often, "Let me help you with that." Help from the wrong person can cost you more than doing it wrong yourself. I've seen brilliant business people destroyed by partnerships with people who seemed helpful but lacked integrity, competence, or shared vision. I've watched wealthy families lose generational wealth because they trusted advisors who prioritize their own commissions over their clients' prosperity. Discernment in relationships requires brutal honesty about patterns, not just intentions. Look at the financial trajectory of the people closest to you. Are they moving toward greater prosperity or deeper struggle? Are their money conversations filled with opportunity or complaint? Do they take responsibility for their financial results or blame external circumstances? Their patterns will become your patterns unless you have extraordinary discipline to resist their influence. The shift begins when you realize that loyalty to the wrong people is betrayal of your own potential. Being kind doesn't require being foolish. Caring about someone doesn't mean accepting their limitations as your own. You can love people from a distance when their proximity threatens your prosperity. You can wish them well while refusing to allow their dysfunction to contaminate your progress. This doesn't mean becoming harsh or ruthless in relationships. It means becoming intentional and strategic. Surround yourself with people who make you better, not just people who make you comfortable. Seek mentors who have achieved what you want to achieve, not just friends who accept where you currently are. Build teams based on competence and character, not just chemistry and convenience. Remember, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If the average person in your inner circle is broke, struggling, or thinking small, that average will pull you down no matter how motivated or talented you are. But if your inner circle consists of people who are prosperous, growing, and thinking big, their elevation will naturally lift you to new levels. Choose your relationships like you choose your investments. Carefully, strategically, and with full awareness that your choices will compound over time to create either wealth or poverty. Number 8, diversification of income sources. You're one crisis away from financial disaster, and you know it. All your eggs are in one basket. All your income flows from one source. All your security depends on one job, one client, or one business. You lie awake at night knowing that if that single stream dried up tomorrow, everything you've built would crumble within months. Yet you keep postponing the uncomfortable work of diversification because your current source feels secure enough, for now. In Ecclesiastes, I wrote these words that have guided wise investors for thousands of years. Give a portion to 7, or even to 8, for you do not know what disaster may come upon the land. This wasn't just financial advice. This was a principle of survival. A strategy for thriving in an uncertain world where circumstances change without warning and security is always temporary. Think of income diversification like the roots of a mighty oak tree. A single taproot, no matter how strong, can be severed by one deep cut. But a root system with dozens of interconnected sources draws nutrients from multiple areas, survives droughts that kill single-rooted plants, and grows stronger with each additional connection to the earth. Your income sources should spread like roots, drawing financial nutrients from multiple streams so that no single disruption can topple your prosperity. Most people diversify their entertainment, their food choices, their social activities, but put all their financial security into one source. They wouldn't eat the same meal every day, but they'll depend on the same paycheck for decades. They want variety in everything except the area where variety matters most, their financial foundation. This is not security. This is vulnerability disguised as stability. I built my wealth through multiple streams that fed into a mighty river of prosperity. Trade agreements with surrounding nations, tribute from vassal kingdoms, income from my merchant fleet, returns from agricultural investments, profits from manufacturing enterprises, taxes from domestic commerce. Each stream was significant, but none was essential. If any single source had disappeared, the others would have continued flowing, maintaining the river's power. The wealthy understand that diversification is not just about having multiple income sources. It's about having multiple types of income sources that respond differently to changing conditions. When my agricultural income declined during drought, my trade income increased as other nations needed to import food. When my manufacturing faced competition, my shipping business profited from increased commerce. The key was ensuring that my various income streams weren't all subject to the same risks and opportunities. Here's what modern diversification looks like in practical terms. You have income from your expertise, your investments, your systems, and your relationships. You earn money from what you know, what you own, what you've built, and who you serve. You have active income that requires your time and passive income that works while you sleep. You have local income and global income, immediate income and long-term income. But diversification without strategy is just scattered effort. Each income stream should align with your overall vision, leverage your existing strengths, and contribute to your long-term wealth-building goals. The goal is not to do everything, but to do several complementary things that multiply each other's impact. Start where you are with what you have. If you're employed, develop skills that could generate consulting income. If you have savings, invest in assets that produce regular returns. If you have expertise, create products or courses that can generate ongoing revenue. If you have relationships, explore joint ventures that benefit all parties involved. The time to dig wells is before you're thirsty. The time to diversify your income is before you need to. Every additional stream you create adds security to your present and potential to your future. Stop betting your entire financial future on a single source, no matter how reliable it seems today. Number 9. Personal purpose as the axis of innovation. You're building someone else's dream while your own unique calling suffocates in the shadows. You study what others have done, copy their strategies, follow their blueprints, and wonder why your results feel hollow even when they succeed. You've become so obsessed with imitating external success that you've lost touch with your internal design, the unique combination of gifts, experiences, and passions that could create something the world has never seen. Innovation is not about creating something completely new. It's about creating something authentically you. Every person carries within them a unique perspective shaped by their experiences, their struggles, their victories, and their dreams. When you try to build prosperity by copying others, you're competing in crowded markets with inferior motivation. But when you build prosperity from your authentic design, you're operating in a market of one with unlimited motivation. I could have ruled Israel exactly like other kings ruled their kingdoms. I could have focused solely on military conquest, political alliances, and traditional displays of power. Instead, I looked within myself and recognized that my unique gifts lay in wisdom, in seeking understanding, in creating systems that could outlast my lifetime. I built prosperity not by copying other kings, but by becoming the king I was uniquely designed to be. Think of your unique design like a master key that opens doors no one else can access. When you try to use someone else's key, you'll find many doors locked that should open easily for you. But when you use your own key, doors open effortlessly that remain locked for everyone else. Your greatest competitive advantage is not what you can learn to do better than others, but what you can do naturally that others struggle to learn. Most people chase opportunities that excite others instead of opportunities that excite them. They enter businesses because those businesses are profitable, not because those businesses align with their passions. They develop skills because those skills are marketable, not because those skills energize them. They build someone else's version of success and wonder why achievement feels empty. The marketplace rewards authenticity more than imitation. Customers can sense when someone is genuinely passionate about their product or service versus when they're just going through profitable motions. Employees can tell when a leader is operating from their strengths versus when they're pretending to be someone they're not. Investors can distinguish between entrepreneurs building their unique vision versus entrepreneurs chasing market trends. Here's the transformation that unleashes true prosperity. Stop asking what's working for others, and start asking what's God calling me to create. Stop studying market trends and start studying your own desires, the problems you're naturally drawn to solve, the people you're naturally gifted to serve. Your prosperity is not hiding in someone else's business model. It's waiting to be discovered in the intersection of your gifts, your passions, and the world's needs. Innovation happens when you stop competing and start creating, when you stop following and start leading, when you stop imitating and start originating. The biggest breakthroughs in history came from people who refused to accept that the current way was the only way, who dared to ask, what if? When everyone else accepted, that's how it's always been done. Your experiences, even the painful ones, especially the painful ones, have prepared you to create solutions that others can't imagine. Your struggles have given you insights into problems that those who haven't faced similar challenges will never understand. Your unique combination of background, personality, and calling is not an accident. It's your competitive edge. Stop trying to be the next version of someone else. Start being the first version of you. The world doesn't need another copy of what already exists. The world needs what only you can create from the unique design God placed within you. Number 10. Purposeful prosperity versus financial vanity. You're chasing fool's gold and calling it success. You want money for the image it creates, the status it confers, the envy it generates in others who don't have what you have. You measure wealth by what you can buy rather than what you can build, by what you can possess rather than what you can create, by how you can impress others rather than how you can impact eternity. This is not prosperity. This is vanity with a bank account. After accumulating wealth beyond measure, after building a kingdom that was the envy of every nation, after achieving everything that money could buy and power could command, I came to a sobering conclusion. Without purpose, it's all vanity. Meaningless, a chasing after wind. The richest man in history declaring that riches without purpose are worthless. Let that sink into your soul before you take another step toward financial increase. The difference between purposeful prosperity and financial vanity is not the amount of money involved. It's the motivation behind the money and the mission that money serves. Purposeful prosperity uses wealth as a tool to build something meaningful that outlasts your lifetime. Financial vanity uses wealth as a trophy to prove your worth to people whose opinions don't matter in the light of eternity. Think of money like fire. Fire can warm your home, cook your food, and light your way in darkness. But fire without purpose becomes destruction, consuming everything it touches, including the one who started it. Money with purpose becomes a blessing that multiplies as it's shared. Money without purpose becomes a burden that corrupts as it accumulates. I watch modern culture obsessing over luxury brands, exotic cars, and mansion-sized homes that serve no purpose except to broadcast the owner's financial status. I see people working jobs they hate to buy things they don't need to impress people they don't like. I witness the hollowness behind the highlight reels, the anxiety behind the abundance, the spiritual poverty hidden behind material plenty. This is not the prosperity God desires for His people. This is not the wealth that creates lasting satisfaction or contributes to lasting legacy. This is decorated emptiness, gilded meaninglessness, expensive vanity that costs far more than money can measure. It costs peace, purpose, and the deep satisfaction that comes from using your resources for something greater than yourself. True prosperity begins with a question most people never ask. Why do I want to be wealthy? If your answer involves impressing others, buying whatever you want, or achieving security through accumulation, you're setting yourself up for the same disappointment I experienced. Wealth without purpose is a magnificent building with no foundation. It may look impressive from the outside, but it cannot stand against the storms of life. The shift happens when you stop seeing money as the goal and start seeing it as the fuel. When you stop asking, how can I get more? and start asking, what am I called to build? When you stop measuring success by what you can afford and start measuring it by what you can contribute. I used my wealth to build a temple that glorified God and served people for generations. What temple are you called to build? What legacy are you called to create? What problem are you uniquely positioned to solve? What impact could your prosperity have on your family, your community, your generation and generations to come? Purpose gives meaning to prosperity, and meaning makes wealth worthwhile. Without purpose, every dollar you earn is just another step toward the same conclusion I reached. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. But with purpose, every dollar becomes a building block in something magnificent that will matter long after you're gone. Stop chasing money for its own sake. Start chasing the mission that money can serve. True prosperity is not about having enough money to buy anything you want. It's about having enough purpose to make everything you buy worthwhile. Number 11. Biblical wisdom and the use of money. You've been treating money like a burden to be managed instead of a tool to be mastered. You earn it with anxiety, spend it with guilt, save it with fear, and give it away with reluctance. You've let poverty theology convince you that money is inherently evil, that seeking wealth demonstrates lack of faith, that financial success somehow competes with spiritual maturity. This is not biblical wisdom. This is religious deception that keeps God's people broke while the world prospers. Jesus told a parable that should revolutionize how every believer thinks about money. A master entrusted his servants with talents, significant sums of money to be invested and multiplied during his absence. 2 servants took risks, made investments, and doubled their master's money. One servant, paralyzed by fear and false ideas about his master's expectations, buried his talent in the ground. When the master returned, he rewarded the investors and condemned the hoarder. The message is clear. God expects his people to multiply the resources he entrusts to them, not bury them in fear. Most Christians approach money with the mindset of the servant who buried his talent. They pray for increase but avoid the risks that create increase. They want God's blessing but refuse to develop the skills and strategies that channel blessing effectively. They quote scriptures about God's provision while making financial decisions based on fear rather than faith. They've confused spiritual humility with financial passivity. Think of money as seed in the hands of a farmer. Seed has tremendous potential, but that potential is only realized when it's planted strategically, nurtured carefully, and harvested wisely. A farmer who hoards his seed for fear of losing it will eventually starve. A farmer who plants randomly without understanding seasons, soil, and weather will waste his seed. But a farmer who studies, plans, and acts with both faith and wisdom will multiply his seed into an abundant harvest. I understood that wisdom and wealth work together, not against each other. The same God who gave me supernatural wisdom expected me to use that wisdom to create prosperity that would serve his purposes. I didn't separate my spiritual life from my financial life because everything belongs to God, including money. My wealth was not a distraction from my faith. It was an expression of my faith in God's desire to bless his people abundantly. But wisdom requires understanding the difference between having money and money having you, between using wealth and being used by wealth, between being blessed to be a blessing and being blessed to be impressive. The love of money is the root of all evil, not money itself. Money amplifies who you already are. If you're generous, money makes you more generous. If you're selfish, money makes you more selfish. The issue is never the money. The issue is the heart of the person handling the money. Here's the practical wisdom that transforms your relationship with money. See yourself as a steward, not an owner. Everything you have belongs to God and has been entrusted to you to manage for his glory and others' good. This removes the pride of accumulation and the fear of loss. You're not trying to get rich. You're trying to be faithful with what God has given you to multiply. Invest in what lasts: relationships, character, skills, and systems that create ongoing value. Spend on what matters: family, ministry, experiences that create memories and meaning. Give from what grows. Let your prosperity bless others in ways that create more prosperity for everyone involved. Save for what's coming. Prepare for opportunities and challenges that require resources you don't currently have. Money is not evil. The love of money is evil. Poverty is not spiritual. Mismanaging resources is unspiritual. God is not against wealth. God is against wealth that becomes an idol. Use money as the tool it was designed to be, and it will serve God's purposes in your life. Let money use you as its slave, and it will destroy everything that actually matters. The same God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills wants to entrust you with resources that match your faithfulness. Handle what you have wisely, and He'll give you more to handle. Be faithful with little, and He'll make you ruler over much. Number 12, money and spirituality. You're carrying guilt that God never intended you to bear. Somewhere along your spiritual journey, you've internalized the lie that wanting financial prosperity makes you worldly, that seeking wealth demonstrates lack of faith in God's provision, that successful Christians should apologize for their success instead of celebrating it as God's blessing. This guilt is not from heaven. This shame is not biblical. This internal conflict is keeping you trapped in poverty while claiming to pursue piety. God is not against money. He's against money being against you. He's not opposed to wealth. He's opposed to wealth that opposes His purposes in your life. The same God who blessed Abraham with great riches, made David wealthy beyond measure, and entrusted me with resources that made entire nations prosperous, wants to bless you financially as you mature spiritually. The issue has never been whether Christians should prosper. The issue is whether Christians can handle prosperity without prosperity handling them. I've observed a pattern throughout history that breaks my heart. God's people living in poverty while claiming it demonstrates their spirituality, struggling financially while calling it trusting God, accepting lack while praising it as contentment. Meanwhile, those who reject God prosper because they understand and apply the principles of wealth creation that God Himself established. This is not God's design. This is the result of religious teaching that contradicts biblical truth. Think of money as a test of character, not a threat to spirituality. Every dollar that passes through your hands reveals something about your heart, your priorities, your true beliefs about God's nature and intentions. How you earn money reflects your understanding of stewardship. How you spend money demonstrates your actual values. How you give money reveals your trust in God's provision. How you save money shows your wisdom about the future. John D. Rockefeller understood what many modern Christians have forgotten. He saw his wealth as a divine trust, his business success as a platform for service, his financial prosperity as an opportunity to advance God's kingdom on earth. He tithed from his first paycheck as a teenager and continued giving throughout his life, ultimately donating more money to charitable causes than any person in history up to that point. His faith didn't make him poor. His faith made his wealth purposeful. The spiritual battle around money is not about having it or not having it. The battle is about identity, security, and trust. Will you find your identity in your bank account or in your relationship with God? Will you find security in your investments or in your faith in divine provision? Will you trust your financial planning or trust God's sovereignty over your financial future? The answers to these questions determine whether money serves you or enslaves you. Here's the transformation that resolves the false conflict between money and spirituality. Stop seeing wealth as competing with faith and start seeing wealth as confirming faith. Stop viewing financial success as evidence of spiritual compromise and start viewing it as evidence of applied biblical principles. Stop apologizing for prosperity and start stewarding it responsibly. Stop feeling guilty for wanting more and start feeling grateful for the opportunity to handle more. But this transformation requires brutal honesty about your motives and continuous accountability about your methods. Why do you want to be wealthy? How are you pursuing wealth? What are you willing to sacrifice for financial success? What are you unwilling to compromise regardless of the financial cost? Your answers determine whether your pursuit of prosperity aligns with or opposes your spiritual development. The goal is not to become rich and religious. The goal is to become prosperous and righteous, financially successful and spiritually mature, wealthy in resources and rich in relationship with God. This integration of material blessing and spiritual blessing is not only possible, it's God's design for those who can handle both without losing either. Stop choosing between money and spirituality. Choose to pursue both with integrity, wisdom, and complete dependence on the God who is the source of every good and perfect gift, including the gift of financial prosperity. Number 13. Personal application of the message. You've heard wisdom that could transform your financial future, but hearing and applying are separated by the vast chasm of decision. Everything I've shared with you about prosperity, wisdom, relationships, and purpose will remain mere information unless you bridge that chasm with intentional action. The question that will determine your destiny is not whether you understand these principles, but whether you will implement them regardless of how difficult, uncomfortable, or inconvenient that implementation proves to be. Most people treat wisdom like entertainment. They enjoy hearing profound truths, feel inspired by powerful insights, even share compelling quotes with others, but they never allow that wisdom to disrupt their comfortable patterns or challenge their familiar limitations. They want transformation without change, breakthrough without sacrifice, prosperity without the discipline that creates and sustains prosperity. This is why most people remain trapped in cycles of financial mediocrity, despite having access to the same wisdom that has created every fortune in history. I am confronting you with a moment of decision that will echo through the rest of your life and into eternity. You can close this video, return to your previous patterns, and continue living with the frustration of unrealized potential. Or you can choose to become someone different, someone who applies wisdom rather than merely consuming it, someone who builds their financial future on the rock of proven principles rather than the sand of wishful thinking. The choice to build on rock begins with honest evaluation of your current foundation. Are you building your prosperity on wisdom or on wishful thinking? Are you making financial decisions based on biblical principles or cultural pressures? Are you developing the character necessary to handle wealth responsibly, or just hoping to get rich quick? Are you seeking God's purposes for your prosperity, or just seeking prosperity for its own sake? This evaluation requires courage because it will reveal areas where you've been deceiving yourself, relationships that are holding you back, habits that are sabotaging your progress, and beliefs that are limiting your potential. But this revelation is not condemnation, it's liberation. You cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge, and you cannot build something new on a foundation you pretend is already solid. The commitment to build on rock means choosing the difficult path of sustainable growth over the appealing path of quick fixes. It means developing systems instead of chasing opportunities, building character instead of just accumulating assets, creating value instead of just capturing profit. It means thinking in decades instead of quarters, prioritizing reputation over revenue, and measuring success by legacy rather than just lifestyle. But most importantly, the decision to build on rock is a decision about identity. You're not just choosing different strategies. You're choosing to become a different person, someone whose character matches their calling, whose habits align with their goals, whose daily decisions reflect their declared values. You're choosing to become the kind of person who naturally attracts prosperity because they've developed the wisdom to handle it wisely. This transformation will not happen overnight, and it will not happen without obstacles. There will be moments when the old patterns seem easier, when the familiar limitations feel safer, when the comfortable mediocrity appears more attractive than the challenging excellence. In those moments, remember this declaration: I choose to build on the rock. Let these words become your battle cry when temptation whispers, your anchor when storms rage, your compass when paths become unclear. You are not just pursuing financial increase. You are pursuing the person God designed you to become. And that person is someone whose prosperity serves purposes greater than personal comfort. The wisdom of the richest man in history is now your wisdom. The principles that built my kingdom are now your principles. The choice that will determine whether these principles transform your life or remain as forgotten information is entirely yours. Choose wisely. Your future is listening. There is a silence that follows understanding, a sacred pause where truth settles into the deepest chambers of your soul. You feel it now, don't you? Something has shifted in the way you see money, the way you understand your calling, the way you perceive the intersection between your faith and your financial future. This is not the end of learning. This is the beginning of becoming. Picture a seed that has finally found fertile ground after years of being scattered on rocky soil. For too long, your dreams of prosperity have struggled to take root because the soil of your mind was contaminated with fear, guilt, and misconceptions about God's intentions for your wealth. But now something different is happening. The soil has been prepared, the lies have been uprooted, and for the first time, your vision of biblical prosperity has space to grow. What you carry forward from this moment will determine whether you join the ranks of those who hear wisdom and apply it, or those who hear wisdom and remain unchanged. The difference between these two groups is not intelligence or opportunity. It's the willingness to let truth disrupt comfortable patterns, to let wisdom challenge familiar limitations, to let God's design for prosperity reshape everything you thought you knew about money and meaning. You are not the same person who began this journey. The questions you ask are different now. The decisions you make will be different now. The future you create will be different now. This transformation is not temporary inspiration that fades with time. This is permanent renovation of your financial foundation, and everything you build from here will reflect this new understanding. If you sense that this journey of discovery is just beginning, that there are depths of wisdom still waiting to be explored, then join me by subscribing. Not because this conversation is ending, but because your awakening is accelerating. The richest man in history has shared his secrets with you. Now comes the sacred work of living them into reality.